Sully, can you explain this magnificent picture that we've just seen?
This picture was taken by a man by the name of Kadushi. He was the only one, or very few Jews who ever took pictures in the ghettos. And he managed to take pictures. And he took also of me standing there selling buns that my mother was baking so we could have some extra money.
And this is a book that you have written.
This is the German version of my book, Light One Candle.
If you can just see the picture. Oh, wonderful. And when was this book published, Sonny?
This book, my English book was published in '95 in New York by Kodansha. This book was published in '97 in Germany, Frankfurt. And it's now in the 6th edition. And the German president adopted the book as a patron for the high schools of Germany.
Until this very day? Sorry, okay, we spoke, you actually you were born in Kovno?
I was born in a very small town next to Maimer called Heidekon.
In Lithuania?
Lithuania.
Is it near Kovno?
That's the port of Lithuania called Klaipėda. And it's about 60 miles from Kovno. And my father had a business there. And in 1933, when Hitler came to power, my father decided to sell his business and he moved to Kovno. And I was at that time 5 years old.
And do you remember? Do you have memories?
I remember vaguely, yeah. When I was 5 years old, I remember I had a German boyfriend. There's a whole story that goes with that too. But one day, you have to read the book.
I'll encourage all our readers to get the book. Sonny, so you grew up from the age of 5 in Kovno?
In Kovno.
And your family, was it a traditional family, a Zionistic traditional family?
My mother was a traditional family. My father was from Minsk, from Russia. He was participated in the revolution. He was a Menshevik, it's a social democrat. When the Bolsheviks came to power, he had to run away and he ran to Lithuania where he met my mother and he married her. And actually he is Russian himself. So that's at home. And I was born in an area that's German speaking, so I knew Russian and German and Yiddish as a little boy already.
And what did your father do? What type of work did he?
In a place called Heidekon, my father had a soap factory together with a German partner. That was his business in there. Afterwards, when we moved to Kovno, he was in a chocolate factory, participated, was a partner, and other businesses.
And growing up, did you have a very traditional family?
Yes, absolutely. Most of the Jews went to Hebrew high schools. There were 3 Hebrew high schools recognized by international standards. And I was in one of them. And the high school I went to was Yavne. It was actually a religious school where we wore kippot. But we learned Hebrew there. The main language was Hebrew.
And what language did you speak at home?
At home we used to speak Yiddish.
Yiddish.
Or sometimes Russian. My father and my mother used to speak Russian.
And growing up, in your home, was it a Zionistic home? Do you remember?
It was absolutely Zionistic. I mean, I belonged to a Zionist group at the time, and we all thought of going to Israel, to Palestine.
This was in the 30s.
They were in the 30s.
And sorry, your involvement with youth movements, were you quite involved with the youth movements?
Well, you read my book, I guess, and you saw me on my website on the internet. And then he contacted me, and actually he got me my name and address to my cousin who lives in Johannesburg. Her name is Grace Rubin, Dr. Grace Rubin. He went to school with her. We studied together. That's how he really got in touch with me.
Okay, and can I ask, Sully, when you were in Kovno, one thing which really stands out a lot from your tremendous, incredible story is your meeting with Sugihara.
Right.
If you can explain to our viewers, how did you have the great honor, how did you have that chance meeting with Sugihara? Do you remember your meeting with him?
Absolutely, I was already 12 years old. And what happened was that it was Hanukkah 1939. Lithuania was still independent at the time, but Poland was already occupied by the Germans. And many Jews fled across the border to Lithuania to get away from the Nazis. On Hanukkah, I was going to my aunt's. She had a deli shop in Kovno. I was going to get some Hanukkah money,
Hanukkah geld.
Hanukkah geld. And because it was, what happened was that I collected a lot of Hanukkah geld from my family, but I gave it to the committee to help the refugees.
Wow.
So I needed some money for my aunt was a very generous woman, and I knew she was gonna give me some money because I wanted to go and see a movie of Laurel and Hardy.
They had a cinema, and
Yeah, I had a cinema in Kovno.
and you liked Laurel and Hardy?
Yeah, I loved it. So when I came to a shop, there was a very elegantly dressed gentleman with slanted eyes buying chocolates for his children. And I was staring at him, and my aunt said, "Stop staring, come and meet His Excellency, the Japanese consul, Mr. Sugihara." So I came over to him, and he shook hands with me, and he smiled at me. And I saw, I had a good feeling about him. Although my grandfather used to say, you know, that the eyes are the windows to the soul. And that's what I saw in his eyes. He smiled at me, he shook my hand, and he said, "How do you do?" We spoke in Russian. I knew Russian, and he spoke very well Russian. And he said, then he took out a coin, was a lit, Lithuanian money, and he was going to give it to me for Hanukkah. He heard about it, that I came to my aunt for Hanukkah money. So I said, "I can take it, you're not the family." So I said, "So for this Hanukkah, I'll be your uncle." So I took the money and said, "If you're my uncle, why don't you come to our Hanukkah party on Saturday?" I was 12 years old, you know, I had the impulse to say that. And my aunt was really surprised. She's taken it back, you know. Here's this little boy inviting the Japanese consul to come to a Hanukkah party. So she said, "I'm sure you must be busy." She said, No, I'm interested." And actually Sugihara was interested to get information. He was sent by the Japanese actually more as a spy than
Yeah.
council because Lithuania was between Russia, Germany, and Poland, and he could get a lot of information. So through us, he came to the Hanukkah party with his wife Yukiko, and at that time, he had no idea about Jews or anybody.
Had he ever met a Jew before?
Probably he did, probably. He studied in somewhere in part of Japan that occupied, I don't remember the name of the town. He studied some languages, Russian. And if he met Jews, I don't know, but through us he met my uncles and my aunts and my cousins.
At the Hanukkah party?
Hanukkah party. And there was a refugee by the name of Rosenthal who stayed at our place. And we received him in our house because the Jewish families took in some refugees.
Was he one of the refugees who came from Poland?
He came from Poland, him and his daughter.
And they were staying with you in your house?
And he approached Sugiyara already that was November, I think, 1939. And he approached him if he could get a visa. And Sugiyara was surprised to listen and hear that. Why would he want to get a visa to Japan? You know, so he said, I'm sure that the Germans will come here too. I want to get out anywhere I can go. So that was the first time that Sugiyara heard about the Jewish problems, or maybe he heard the Jewish problems was happening in Poland because he had agents in Poland.
But coming to the Hanukkah party, is possibly it could be the first time that he actually met. He met
right.
Jews who wanted to leave.
That's right. Then he started inquiring from us. We lived not far from the consulate. When he heard that I'm collecting stamps.
You were collecting stamps?
I was collecting stamps, so he invited me to come to his house to give him stamps. He would give me every week.
And you went to his house?
I used to go to his house almost every week, playing with his children. Actually, one of his sons was called the Iraqi. And later after the war, we were lecturing together in California.
And he used to give you stamps? Japanese
He was
stamps?
giving me Japanese stamps that he received.
Wow.
I collected. And then...
Do you still have any of the stamps that he gave you? Or
No.
the envelopes?
No, I don't have anything. I got stuck, I was undressed naked in a concentration camp. We had nothing left. And we came from Lithuania, from the Ghetto. They took us to a concentration camp in Danzig, Kostuto. Everything was taken away from us. We even undressed us.
So, sorry, can I ask, how often did you go to his house to get the stamps?
Yes,
You went for a couple of months. This was in 1939.
1939. Up to 1940. 1940, the Russians occupied Lithuania.
Do you remember when the Russians came in?
Of course. That was too late for us to leave because our passport became invalid. But because of Sugiyara, we were among the first, even before the other Jews, we got visas to go to Japan.
He gave you and your family visa?
We were the friends. And then in July 1940, all the refugees were trying to get visas to go anywhere. And nobody was giving the Jews visas. There were Americans, there were British, there were French. So they all lined up in the front of the Japanese consulate. They heard from us that he was very friendly. So at the beginning, when he lined up to get visas, he tried to get permission from the Japanese government to give him visas. But the Japanese government refused it. So he decided to go ahead anyway, because it was a humanitarian thing to do. Because he heard already what's happening in Poland, how the Germans are killing the Jews. So he cooperated with the Dutchman, the Dutch consul, who gave out in order for him to give a visa, he had to give a transit visa. So the Dutch consulate was giving visas to islands in the Pacific belonging to Holland.
Carousel.
And so he could, on top of that stamp, he gave a transit visa to Japan. So that's how they worked out that thousands of Jews received. He was at the end he got so involved that he was day and night putting up.
Him and his wife were writing the visas by hand.
By hand.
And do you remember seeing from his house people from the Mir Yeshiva coming, the Bochrim coming, the students coming and lining up by his house to get the visas? Do you remember?
There was a guy, afterwards he was the minister of religion. A guy by the name of, forgot, he lived in Jerusalem. He was first minister of religion in Israel. He was from Mizrahi. Came with a group of people to Gehara, and through him, Mira Yeshiva found out also about getting a visa. So he gave visas to the whole yeshiva, including the rabbis. And they all went to Vladivostok, I think, and then to Israel.
And they went to Shanghai. They were staying in Shanghai. And Sonny, do you remember ever seeing people lining up by his house?
Yeah, I used to go there for the stamps.
And you saw the people lining up?
Right.
Yeshiva Bochrim, Yeshiva students?
That's right.
And Polish as well?
Most of them were Polish.
And do you ever remember seeing the Yeshiva boys as well?
Yeah, of course. There was a Slabotka Yeshiva not far from us. I met Yeshiva Bochrim.
That is amazing. And him and his wife, and did he ever speak to you about it? Did Sugihara ever explain to you what he's doing, that he's writing visas?
Well, he suggested to my father that he should leave too, because we had also a visa to go to the United States, because my father had a sister and a brother there. And they sent us visas. And Sugihara suggested at one time for my father to leave as soon as possible.
And did your father?
My father wanted to sell his business. So by the time he tried, he was found a buyer, the Germans attacked. So we got caught up in the Holocaust. Sugihara left, was ordered to leave, I think it was August or July 1940. And he went to Königsberg, to Germany. And when he was in the train, he was still signing visas. He was really passionate about it.
And you were friendly with his children?
I was friendly with his children. I'm still friendly with one of them called Nabuki, who lives in Antwerp and married to a Dutch girl, Belgian. I just met up with them 2 months ago.
They named a street in Netanya.
In Netanya, they named them Mesita because many of the Sugihara survivors live in Netanya, of all places. And did you see that? There was
there's a picture of what they did in
a
Italian.
planetarium.
Wow. And Sonny, can I ask you, when Sugihara left, you and your family were still in Kovno?
Yes. And then the Russians were going to deport us to Siberia because my father was Russian and he was declared as an anti-Soviet. And the day that we were supposed to be sent to Siberia, the Germans attacked.
Aye.
And so we got stuck in the Holocaust. And I met up at Sugihara only much later.
Can I ask, is it too difficult to tell what happened when the Germans came into Kovno?
Well, there were 30,000 of Jews, and we were put in a ghetto.
In Kovno?
And the first month already, in October, they started killing off most of them. 10,000 of them were children and women, and people who were ill were taken to a place above Kovno, the ninth floor.
We were there 3 months ago.
They shot all of them.
In the ninth floor. Could you
we
hear the
could
shooting?
them. We were selected to stay in the camp, in the ghetto, but not selected to be shot. And by the time, by 1944, when the Russians were approaching, there was only 5,000 Jews left in the ghetto. And most of them were shipped to Germany.
And what happened? Did you stay in the ghetto till?
We stayed in the ghetto till we were evacuated to concentration camp in Dachau in Germany. And there we spent the last 9 months of the war. We were in Dachau.
And how old were you at that time?
I was 17 at the time. And I survived the war and was rescued by American troops. And just happened to be the first troops who came by were Japanese Americans. It was a strange coincidence.
From Hawaii, and they were from Hawaii?
Most of them were Hawaiian, but many came from the west coast of California.
And they were Japanese American who liberated.
Yeah, one of them called Clarence Matsumura. He dug me out of the snow. It was snowing at the time, and we were snowed under when the Germans were trying to kill us, but they couldn't see us anymore. So many died under the snow, but I survived.
He dug you out?
And he got me out, and he put a blanket around me and took me to a field kitchen. It's all in my book in here, right? Light one candle. You can read about it.
And if you open the book, Sonny, I think when you went to Hawaii, you met with, did you meet with him?
I met with the whole battalion, not the battalion, but many who were stayed alive, and they signed them on my book.
And the American Japanese soldier who dug you out, did you meet with him as well?
Yes.
And he signed in your book as well?
No, he was dead by then.
But and these are the other American, mainly American Japanese?
Yeah, the whole American.
Who liberated Dachau?
Yeah.
And they signed your book?
They liberated us on a death march. We were on a death march, not in Dachau itself. They moved us out of the end of the war. They moved us out of the Dachau on the death march. So that's how we were marching till the Americans caught up with us.
So Sonny, if they wouldn't have come within a couple of hours,
exactly what they
you wouldn't have survived. It's a miracle.
That's an absolute miracle. Afterwards, I met up with them in in California. I lived in San Diego for a while. And he lived in Los Angeles. We used to meet up.
The soldier who dug you out from the snow.
Clarence, yeah. Here's a picture.
I'm going to just...
Can you see? You see the snow around? He sits in next to the Jeep.
I'm going to just focus, yeah. And that was a picture from when he...
That's on the 2nd of May 1945, the day that they liberated us.
It's amazing. There's the tree, you can see. There's a Jeep in the background, yeah.
The Jeep, yeah.
And you met up with him when you were in San Diego.
Right.
So after the war, what happened when you were liberated?
Actually, he and his group came to Jerusalem to look for us in 1994. A group of American soldiers, the Japanese guys, came to Jerusalem to see if anybody of those who the rescued survived. And Dov, I don't know if you remember, there was a guy by the name of Dov Shilansky.
I do remember. He was
one of those who was rescued. He marched with us. He was from Sable,
That's right.
Lithuania. And he marched with us on the death march. He was rescued by the Japanese Americans like I did.
Wow.
So when they came, he was the spokesman of the Knesset.
That's right. He was the Speaker of the Knesset.
So he invited us all together to come to the Knesset, and he didn't accept any appointments. He spent the whole day with us and them, and the pictures taken in the Knesset.
Wow. And sorry, after you were liberated, where did you go?
After liberated, I was, because I knew languages, I learned English accidentally. I was in a ghetto, living next to a woman from London. She was a teacher. She was married to a Lithuanian guy. And I was helping her with bringing the rations. She's an elderly woman. Her husband was killed. So she said, if I want to learn English, you know, she said 3 languages, 4 languages. So I said, okay. So I was helping her and she was teaching me English. So when we were rescued, and the Americans, I was one of the few who spoke English. I knew I didn't know it well, but I knew well enough. So they took me into the army, the American army, and as an interpreter. And here you can see in the book that I was wearing American Army uniform.
I saw a picture.
Yeah, I saw the picture. So I was 3 years there, and then 1948, when Israel became a state, I decided to volunteer to the army. I went with the Machalniks. I went to Marseille and met up with South Africans and Canadians, and British, and we were all put in Chativa Sheva.
And this is the picture from... And you fought in the War of Independence in 1948 here in Israel.
Right.
Wow, Sally, this is incredible. And after the War of Independence?
After the War of Independence, I decided to join the mercenary. And I wanted to see the world. So I joined the mercenary, and finally it wasn't easy, but I became a sailor. And afterwards I became an officer, and I was for 10 years traveling around the world in ships.
This was commercial ships, not part of...
Commercials.
Okay.
Afterwards,
And were you American citizen?
no, afterwards, later, afterwards, no, I didn't, was not American citizen. Only later when I met my wife, I got off the ships and we went to San Diego because she was an American citizen.
Okay. And sorry, can I ask, going back to with regard to the Shoah, I know this is a difficult question, but what happened to your family
Most of them were killed.
and your parents?
My father survived with me in Dachau. My mother died in Stuttgart near Danzig in concentration
Oh,
camp.
yeah.
My brother was shot right in the beginning of the war.
In Kovno?
Kovno.
Do you remember?
Yes,
Did you see him being shot?
I didn't know.
Wow.
They took him away, the Germans.
Was he older or younger than you?
He was 7 years older.
And he was shot in Kovno in the beginning. Wow. And what happened to your father after the war?
My father, he was one of the founders of the Jewish community in Munich. And they created a school for Jews.
And he lived in Munich.
Pardon?
He lived in Munich, your father?
He lived in Munich for a while and he met a Canadian woman who was in charge of the UNRWA. And Dr. Austria, and he was in Dr. Austria. And they married and they went to Canada, my father. And after some time he came to Israel after the war. And he died in Israel.
He died in Israel. Wow, Sally, it is, what a story. So Sally, can I just ask you, with regard to Sugihara, if you wouldn't have wanted to go see the Laurel and Hardy and ask your aunt for the Hanukkah gelt, then you wouldn't have met Sugihara, and you wouldn't have invited him to your home for Hanukkah.
You know, it's strange that you're saying that, because when we were now in Netanya, naming the street after Sugihara, there was one of the survivors, a woman, and she spoke among the survivors. She told a story, and she said about me, I wonder if you would have happened to get the visas if Sully was in Hanukkah meeting in Sugihara. She mentioned that.
It's Min HaShamayim, it really is. It was Min HaShamayim. It's not a coincidence, it was meant to be. What happened to your aunt who had the sweet shop?
She was also in a concentration camp. She survived.
She survived.
But she died after, I think in 1950, she died in Kovno. She went back from the concentration camp, she went back to Kovno.
And she lived in Kovno?
She lived in Kovno, together with. If you open my website, I give you my website, you'll see pictures, like my family, the whole story, you can find everything in it.
I'm going to encourage all our listeners to get the book and to look at the website. But Sonny, can I ask, looking back at that incident, I mean, it's not only the Jews that he saved in Kovno itself and those from Poland, but the whole Mir Yeshiva, intact. The entire Mir Yeshiva got the visas from Sugihara, who did it by hand, him and his wife, and they went to Shanghai, and the whole Mir Yeshiva was saved.
The whole Mir Yeshiva was saved, and there was, I think I told you, there was a Canadian company who made a movie called Conspiracy of Kindness. And at the end of the movie, we all went to the Mir Yeshiva in Jerusalem. They were going to filming with Mrs. Sugihara. they invited her over because usually women didn't go there. And the Rabbi Rashi was crying. I saw him, it was filmed, that he's saying, Mr. Sugihara, because of you and your husband, we're all alive here today. And today, there's about 80,000 survivors.
80,000.
80,000. Children and grandchildren who are alive thanks to Sugihara.
And in part thanks to you for inviting him to your home for Hanukkah.
You know, she wrote a book, Mrs. Sugihara, called Visas for Life. In that book, she put in a picture of me,
Wow.
and she said, and she wrote next to my picture, she said that her husband, Kuni Sugihara, may have been influenced by a young boy, his name was Soda Ganor, to issue visas. She wrote that. I was really honored.
Sally, it is unbelievable.
Get that book.
We definitely will.
Also,
No.
it's called Visas for Life.
Sally, I'm sure you must have heard the very famous statement that Sugihara said when they said to him, why did you do it? Or how can we repay you? And he said, do what is right because it is right and leave it alone.
That's right.
And he didn't do it for any financial gain. He didn't do it for any reward. But I think what happened when they met with Sugihara and the survivors wanted to repay there's no words to describe his kindness.
Yeah.
What he did, there are just no words to describe. He didn't want to take a reward, but he said he has a son that...
Actually, they had to look for him.
Yeah, he changed his name.
No, he didn't change his name. His survivor later worked in the Israeli consulate in Tokyo. And he began looking for Sugihara. And he started looking for him. And he found out that he was fired. And he was working in Moscow. To support his family, because he knew Russian.
So he's working in Moscow.
He worked in Moscow for a company, and he died. He was among the first to become righteous of the nation from Yad Vashem.
I think he's the only Japanese...
Yeah, well, he was also among the first people who got it in 1985.
To be awarded the Chasidei U'Matalam, the righteous of the Gentiles.
That's right.
And I think when they met with him, they pleaded, how could they help? And I think the only thing he asked is if they could educate his son.
Yeah, that's Buki.
And Buki, which university, did he come to the Hebrew University in Jerusalem?
Yeah, he studied in University in Jerusalem.
And it was paid for by the survivors?
It was paid for by the government of Israel.
By the government of Israel?
Yeah, that's what the Prime Minister asked him what he wants. So Buki studied there. He studied, but at the end, he considered he would have to make a living, so he was invited to Netanya, where he studied how to produce diamonds, how to produce jewels. And later, he opened up a factory with 1,000 workers in Thailand, but it didn't work out. So the Hasidim from Antwerp, all those who trade in diamonds are religious people in Antwerp.
Yeah.
They invited him to come over because he knew about
Diamonds?
diamonds. So he came there and he opened a business and he met a Belgian girl and he married her.
And he's living today in Antwerp.
He's up to that. We just met up. I have a nice picture with him.
And he came to Netanya for the naming of the street,
He was invited. He was made.
the guest of honor.
Sure, he was invited by the government to come as number one person.
The Israeli government invited.
Yeah.
And are you in touch with him?
Yeah, just now. All the time an email. I can give me your email. I'll send you the picture.
Absolutely, what an honor. And Sonny, can I ask, after your experience, I mean, what you've gone through, it's not by coincidence, it's not by chance. I mean, you've touched history. I mean, you meeting Sugihara, you've met one of the, possibly in Jewish history, he will go down as one of the greatest Chasidei Umot Olam, one of the, to have saved personally at such a risk, and to have done what he did.
Just everything is, getting fate or coincidence or Al-Hibrat. You see that picture of the children? This is a study guide produced in Canada for the high schools of Canada.
For the general, not only for the Jewish schools, for the general schools.
No, all schools.
All schools.
Nothing to do with you. And you see the children in the bottom playing.
Yeah.
These are the children that I promised that if I survive the Holocaust, I will tell the story. That's why I wrote the book to start with, because I made a promise.
You made a promise to these children that you'll tell the story.
And they all were killed. These children were killed.
These were the children in Kovno.
In Kovno. You see here, you can see them here. And look at this one. That's another one. Yeah, you can see them.
And these were your friends?
That's from Toronto. This is Vancouver, this is Toronto.
And these children in the picture, these were your friends, and you're playing.
These are playing in the sand.
And where are you in the picture, Sonny?
I'm not. I was not in that picture.
But these
were a bit younger than I.
And these were children that you knew.
Children that I knew, sure.
And you made a promise that you would tell the story.
Yeah. All my friends, I said, we all made promises to each other. Whoever is going to survive will tell this story.
Sorry, that is amazing. And here is Zachor, remember?
Yeah, I did. This is the also the same as study guide for Germany. It was published by Dachau, concentration camp. You can see my picture on it too.
It's the same picture that we have.
Yeah, that you took. And the name of my book in German is called Das andere Leben, the other life.
Do you know who took this picture?
Yes. I know, of course I know. Here's the guy called Kaddish.
And did he survive the war?
He survived the war, and he had enough. He survived the war, and he hid all the pictures that he took. The whole war, he took pictures of the Kovno Ghetto, and he hid it in milk cans in the ground, and he managed to escape the last week before the Germans pulled out, managed to escape. And when he, after the war, he dug up the milk cans with all the pictures, and he brought them to the States. and he died in Miami, and his daughter gave it to the Byzantine Center, all the pictures. The Byzantine Center, that Rabbi Cooper read my book. Rabbi Cooper then saw the pictures and invited me over. I was in San Diego, not far. He invited me over and he said, look at those pictures, this is from Kovno, can you identify any of them? And you know something, I read your book and the pictures fit your book. Why don't we make an exhibition of it? So I said, sure thing. So they decided to make an exhibition. It became international. He went, he was started in New York and in Vancouver and Toronto, Mexico City, Dachau, Munich, all over. Right now the exhibition is in Germany. One is in Toronto, one is in Germany.
Did you ever go to any of the exhibitions?
Of course, I was invited. You see, I was invited to come to the exhibition both in places, in Vancouver and in Toronto, and in Munich, in every place, and in New York too. I have a lot of material about that.
And sorry, the book that you're holding now, Amigo?
This is my fourth book. It's called Omega. And it is a novel.
It's a novel.
It's based on my experiences and what happened to the Jews in Poland, Lithuania, and about the Germans, and about the Swiss banks, how they robbed the Jews of their money. You see the Swiss flag?
Yeah.
That's the Bahnhofstrasse in Zurich. That's the Swiss are not exactly happy about this book.
And sorry, your first book that you wrote,
Yes.
when did you write it?
This was I always liked to write since I was a child. So I was written, while I was in the Ghetto, I wrote
You were writing when you were in the ghetto?
writing the Ghetto was writing what they call a diary. I wrote a diary of daily events in the Ghetto.
And that's been published?
The problem was when I came to the concentration camp, I had to drop it in the toilet. It was a big, because if the Germans would have caught me with that writing, they would have killed me. And besides, they undressed me naked. I couldn't have anything. So when after I was liberated, there was an Israeli, Lithuanian Jewish historian who helped me remember. Once I wrote down, I remembered a lot. So this is based on my diary.
Light one candle.
Light one candle is based on my diary.
And this book has been, when was it published?
In 1995. It was supposed to be published in Japan to start with, because Mr. Sugihara invited us to come to the Japanese government. Finally acknowledged Sugihara's greatness and helped. There was a place called where he was born. They made kind of what's called the Hill of Humanities, a park. And a friend of his who studied with him became a multimillionaire. He gave them money for the park. Mrs. Sugihara invited us. I kept in touch with her. Invited me, my wife and me to come to the opening of the park. I have a picture were sitting next to Mrs. Sugihara
In the park.
in the park. Yeah.
And how did you feel visiting Japan?
How
Do you,
about?
do you have a affinity for Japan? How did you
Well,
feel?
obviously, yeah.
Sure, there were Japanese Americans that saved you. You've had quite a Japanese,
Background.
that's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah, I was twice in Japan giving lectures to the universities, translated into Japanese.
So Sally, I'll mention when we were in Sugihara's home in Kovno,
Yeah.
which is today a museum, there was a busload after we were there, a busload of Japanese tourists that come specifically to Lithuania, to Kovno, and it's a pilgrimage to go to the home and to see this great man who
Yeah.
personally saved lives. Not only did he saved,
At that time, I saw in Tokyo, I think based on what remained from the remains, Tokyo was bombed, but for some miracle, this visa section remained intact. And I have a list of those who were saved by Sugihara.
you have a list?
I had somewhere at the time, I think it was about 6,000.
He personally, him and his wife wrote
I
6,000
think it was 2,600 plus the family members. So altogether there were 6,000.
And today there's there's over 80,000 survivors.
Mrs. Sugihara invited us to come to New York. Sugihara survivors made it was a celebration of Sugihara, and she invited me to come as well to speak in the town hall, New York town hall. And it was packed full of people, Sugihara survivors, and I was sitting with her on the podium. The boy, about 14, 12 years old, came with a bunch of flowers. He said, Mrs. Sugihara, in the name of the community, here are some flowers, and thank you very much. Because of you, there are 60,000, at that time it was only 60,000 people are alive today. And everybody stood up and cheered. That was about 10 years ago.
So I remember personally in Johannesburg meeting a rabbi who came from Miri Shiva that was sent to Shanghai, that he survived, and
We all came to Shanghai.
I remember.
The Dachau demanded from the Japanese government, in the beginning they were all in Kobe, the Jews. They came from Vladivostok. And he demanded from the Japanese government all the Jews to be sent to Germany. So they were transferred to Shanghai. The government, the Japanese government, saved them. They moved them to Shanghai, that's why they landed up in Shanghai to start with.
So the Japanese government themselves did it.
Yeah, without the government they wouldn't be able to move. They were in the beginning in Kobe. They came from Vladivostok to Kobe, not to Shanghai, to Japan.
So Sully, going back, your promise that you made to those boys, you kept your promise, and this is one of the most remarkable stories. It's not only a story, this is a remarkable event, not event, this is history. Sully, you made history. You actually made history.
I was lucky that I liked writing. I wonder how many of the survivors who never want to speak about it and never want to write about it, but wonderful stories they could tell. Because I knew how to write, all this became known around the world.
And Sully, I want to make a bit of a promise to you. The stamps that you collected, do you remember what type of stamps, or it made no difference?
No.
You just liked nice stamps from all over the world?
At that time I liked stamps from all over the world. And Japanese were exotic stamps. I was happy to get them.
So I would like to bring you a few of my stamps just in appreciation. And
I think
later I'll bring you a few stamps that you can enjoy, and stamps, it's very dear to me, so I'd like to make...
I think my father had some stamps, some book somewhere lying here. I wonder some of the stamps maybe worth some money.
Sure.
Many years.
Wow, this has been such an honor and a privilege, Sully, to witness. You made history, Sully. You actually made history.
You didn't give me your card or anything.
I will, and we'll be in touch. And the promise that you made to those boys, that you'll tell the story, this story will be told now worldwide, that more people will be able to see it and to appreciate it, and to believe that it's Mina Shemaim, that by doing a good deed, by inviting somebody, I mean, what you did was incredible as a 12-year-old boy, to invite without any, you just invited the ambassador, the Japanese ambassador, to your home, and that your parents accepted the Achnasat Orchim, that you invited him to your home for their Hanukkah party. That changed the course of history. It really did. I really believe that your actions had a tremendous bearing on Jewish history, on saving not only Mir Yeshiva, but Polish Jews and other Jews, and you've got a great part to play in Jewish history as well, and in world history.
Well, I'm happy to have done that. It was just coincidence.
Sonny, it was more than coincidence. It was meant.
Yeah,
you're such a lovely person, and I can just imagine this little boy that you were in this picture that you were holding, you were sitting in the picture, Sonny, behind you, where you are in the Kovno, that is in the Kovno Ghetto.
Kovno Ghetto, Bara Street.
And what were you selling? Do you remember?
My mother was baking buns because my sister was working in Kovno and she was bringing flour. So she could make buns so we could have a little bit extra money to buy provisions.
But Sonny, also what strikes me, and will also a lot of other viewers will be amazed, is that you gave your own Hanukkah geld, your own money, to the needy.
Was another impulse.
So that, not an impulse, you have the kindness and the goodness of your heart by giving your own money to the needy, to those who needed it. That chesed that you did, Hashem repaid in tremendous ways, in unbelievable. It's your kindness and your goodness that you did. And you gained your love for life and for Laurel and Hardy, and you going to ask your aunt to give you money to watch a movie, such a small thing that we would take for granted, saved people's lives. And we have a tremendous gratitude to you, Sonny, a tremendous gratitude Israel has, the nation of Israel has. And we are so grateful, and you must just be gesund and well, and you can be so proud of your achievements, and that you kept your promise to those little boys. Beyond belief, beyond imagination, what you did.
I think I have the book of Mrs. Sugihara if you want to see it. Should I bring it?
Absolutely. And Sonny, we'll be in touch, and I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. It's been an honor and a privilege beyond description to be here in your presence. And I just wish you all the goodness and all Hashem's blessings. May you just be blessed with mazel, bracha, health.
I'd like to mention one more thing.
Absolutely.
Because of all my activities and my books in Germany of all places, the German government put up a website on my book, of my book.
Really?
And two presidents adopted the book, and 18 mayors of major German towns became patrons of the book.
Is that so? That's amazing. And so our viewers, if they want to receive your book, if they want to get it, they go to Amazon, Amazon.com, and then they just...
Amazon.com, you can say my book, Light One Candle.
Light One Candle at Amazon.
Or just put my name, so they can know.
In Amazon.
Best thing, like, if you want that book, Light One Candle, because otherwise it'll give you all my books. Amazon.
Maybe people should buy all the books as well. But let them start off with Light One Candle, and you must just be...
When you see Light One Candle, you see readers' reviews. All the readers gave me 5 stars. Everyone says that they never read a book like that.
Well, so if you look at the back of the jacket of the book, we have the author from Schindler's List, who gave you also magnificent reviews.
Yeah.
But it's not fiction. Your book is real. It's
Look who else gave me a... Look at the front page.
You can read?
Yeah, I can read. It is important that this book be read by many in the present generation and next. U.S. Representative Nancy Pelosi, California.
She wrote
that.
Sally, it's just, there are no words to describe. This has been such an amazing...
You didn't expect to find that I have written books.
But not only to be in your presence, to see somebody who's actually changed history from the goodness of your heart, from your kindness, from your actions. It's really been such a tremendous honor and a privilege. And we go on for Rosh Hashanah. May this be a year of just gesund, health, peace, shalom, and all of Hashem's blessings on you and your family. You must be well, and please God, people must just appreciate what you've done, which we all do, and we just want you to be well with all of Hashem's blessings. Thank you so much, Sonny.
Thank you very much.
In this picture, Sonny, it's you and...
This is Ganor in San Francisco. This was 2005, I think.
You had a very close connection with the family.
Yeah. I traveled with her to... She was invited in all kinds of places, and she took me with her. And we looked like a couple.
It's amazing. And you spoke at Barnes and Noble, and at so many different book launches and different organizations.
Right.
You are with the German president.
Yeah, I was invited to the German parliament, and they introduced me to the German president.
And in what year was this, Solly?
It was in 2009, I think.
And Solly, can I ask, when you went to Germany, it must have been also a very difficult trip to go to Germany?
It was easier to go to Germany than to Lithuania. Somehow, I don't know why.
And when you went to the German parliament, you were very well received?
Very well.
It's a tremendous honor, a schut, gadol, a very great honor and a privilege to have two incredibly special people. We have Sally Ganor and Jonathan Razal, who especially come here to be with us this afternoon, and we'll be dedicating iconic music that you composed for the Hisha Amda to Sally and to the family, and I cannot thank you enough. Jonathan, there are no words to describe our appreciation. And Sally, you are a hero, Mamash Gibor B'Yisrael, and it's a great split. Okay? Okay.
No,
Sally, you're going to hear, you wrote in your Facebook, "B'chol davar do'am da'aleinu," in every generation they rise against us, but Hashem will save us. And we have Yonatan's son Moshe here as well. So Yonatan, if you can explain to Sally how you composed the music for Vehishamda and how it's played in, I would say, in the majority of Jewish homes on the Seder, every Pesach.
So basically, it's a tune that it's, you could say, a new tune to this old, very, very old words. I remember already as a child that I was very connected to these words. The idea that every generation, we're going through this world, thousands of years, the Babylonians and the Egyptians and the Spanish, and you know, and every generation we are, Hashem saves us and brings us through. I remember already as a child, when I was a very young boy, I was very amazed by these words. I think I used to cry, let us say at that moment. I used to be like, I almost felt it was like a journey song, you know, the song of a journey, an anthem of a journey. We are on our way, you know, we are on a long, long, long way. We are home already, and we're still, you can see.
we were on the way for 2,000 years.
Right? In a sense, we're here and we're still around the world. Still, it's not, you know, we are not sitting in peace at home. There's there's all kinds of things, and also my grandfather, as I said, maybe I'll sing another song later. It's called Katonti. My grandfather jumped off a train on the way to one of the camps, and
So where did he hide?
he hid for 3 years
No
with
kidding.
his wife, yes, in a house of amazing, two families basically. One family, the Klok family near Amsterdam, Beemstead, near Amsterdam, and he and his child, his oldest son, was hidden in a different family, the Terhar family. They're all amazing families. And after the war, he decided to come. He made Aliyah. It's also a very beautiful story. But anyway, I'll play you the music, and then maybe we'll.
Yeah, I used to be in Holland a lot. I was an officer in the mercenary,
In
in the Navy,
I'm the Navy,
Israeli mercenary.
really.
Yeah, you used to, there were some ships that were built in Rotterdam. I was in a ship called Tamar that was coming to Rotterdam all the time.
בחיל הים, לא.
לא, צי סוחר.
צי הסוחר, כן, כן.
צי סוחר. I was a קצין שם.
Wow.
Yeah. I got, a letter from a Japanese, from Hawaii. He's a historian for the Japanese army, from the guys who saved me. And he wrote me, he said, I'm preparing your history. And what you did in your short lifetime, 1,000 people didn't do it in 1,000 years. I was in the American Army, I was in the Israeli Army, Chadiba Sheva, I was in the Navy, in the Israeli Navy, I was in the Israeli mercenary. So I happened to do a lot.
You're still doing it, Hashem. You should live many more years with your wife. Where's she, Nina? Paula.
Paula. Okay.
Okay, I'll sing this song. Vehi שלא אחד בלבד עמד עלינו לכלותנו, עמד עלינו לכלותנו, והיא שעמדה לאבותינו, והיא שעמדה לאבותינו לנו, שלא אחד בלבד עומד עלינו לכלותנו, עומד עלינו לכלותנו, והקדוש ברוך הוא מצילנו, מצילנו מידם, והקדוש ברוך הוא יצילנו, יצילנו מידם. והיא שעמדה לאבותינו, והיא שעמדה לאבותינו לנו, שלא אחד בלבד עומד עלינו לכלותנו, עומד עלינו לכלותנו, והקדוש ברוך הוא מצילנו, מצילנו מידם, והקדוש ברוך הוא יצילנו, יצילנו מידם, שלא אחד בלבד עמד עלינו לכלותנו, לכלותנו, והקדוש ברוך הוא מצילנו והקדוש ברוך הוא מצילנו, מצילנו
So unbelievable. Jonathan, unbelievable.
נהנית מזה פולה? You liked it? You cried?
Yeah, me too.
It's kind of reminds us of the good old days.
Yeah.
Reminds you of the good old days.
You know,
Oh, and-
I have to tell you that this song, I had the worship of the end of Pesach in Galilee. There was a rabbi from the army, and he sang the song, and he said at the end, "V'kadosh Baruch Hu yatzilenu miyadam," but don't forget to pass the ammunition. Yes.
I read it.
What's the passage?
The arms. That Hashem will save us, but we must do our Hishtadlut, we must also
Don't
do
forget to pass the ammunition.
the weaponry.
It
And the
helps.
rabbi said that. And your second song, which is,
Sing a 20?
that's unbelievable.
I'll tell a little bit of the story.
This is incredible.
So, as I said, so my grandfather, when he was in, after the war, Baruch Hashem, he was saved, and then he decided to make Aliyah. He had 3 children. He was a professor of Greek and Latin. And he was teaching in Amsterdam University, and he decided to come to make Aliyah. And he came to Israel. it was 52, 52. And he looked for a job in Israel, חיפש עבודה. And he couldn't find a job. And it was the Shnot of the Tzena, the difficult years in the beginning of the state of Israel.
Yeah, I remember those days.
Moshe, can I show you something? Let me show you a Haggadah.
בוא תסתכל, רגע. בוא תזוז לשם.
I've given your Abba and your family one. If you look at the...
תסתכל על זה כמה דקות.
You can open. There's one Megillat Esther and Jonathan, can I ask you a big favor?
קטונתי מכל החסדים ומכל האמת שעשית את עבדך. קטונתי מכל החסדים ומכל האמת שעשית את עבדך. קטונתי מכל החסדים ומכל האמת שעשית את עבדך. I'm humbled in front of all the good that you've given me every day, all my life. במקלי עברתי את הירדן, טעיתי לשני מחנות. הצילני נא, הצילני נא, הצילני נא. במקלי עברתי את הירדן, טעיתי לשני מחנות. הצילני נא, הצילני נא, הצילני נא. I'm humble in front of all the good that you've given me every day, every minute of my life. כן אני קטונתי מכל החסדים ומכל האמת אשר עשית את עבדך. במקלי עברתי את הירדן ודעיתי לשני מחנות. הצילני נא, הצילני נא, הצילני נא. במקלי עברתי את הירדן ודעיתי לשני מחנות. הצילני נא, הצילני נא, הצילני נא. כי חסדך גדול עליי, כי חסדך גדול עליי. והצלת, אוי הצלת את נפשי משאול תחתיה. קטונתי מכל החסדים ומכל האמת.
Wow.
תודה רבה.
Ein milim. There are no words.
Thank you so
Jonathan,
much.
there are no words. There really are no words. It's one can cry.
Very touching.
It's Nagila, it touches the
So in
soul.
the memory of Sugihara, that he did this miracle, that he saved our people, that he was such a messenger, such a malach to do such
Yeah.
It's amazing, this story, amazing,
You
amazing.
know the story already.